Quinshon Judkins and Rico Dowdle are elite fantasy starts this week and great matchups. We reveal our running back rankings for week 7 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with the NFL Network.
And I'm your other host here, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. It is time to dig into our running back rankings for week 7. I mean, we're deep into the season now. We have a much better understanding of how all of these guys are being utilized, which makes it much easier for our rankings. But there are a couple guys that disappointed last week, specifically Quinshon Judkins, that we expect to have a big bounce back week. So let's hop into the top of our running back rankings here, and we'll talk about why we rank them at these particular spots. So right at the top, we both have Jonathan Taylor. He's just been a baller. I mean, he's been a beast this year. We're going to keep him right at the top. We actually have the same top 5, just a slightly different order. So I have Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Josh Jacobs. You have Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs in that order. And then at number 6, we just have these guys flop right here. You have Rico Dowdle at 6, Quinshon Judkins at 7. I have Judkins at 6 and Rico Dowdle at 7. Let's start with Judkins because first bad game, right, of him being in the NFL, where it was just like he couldn't get going on the ground, had 12 carries, only 36 yards. But in a matchup against the Dolphins, we fully expect him to bounce back this week.
Yeah, the Browns typically keep things close with their defense, and what happened last week, the Steelers were in control of that game, and the Steelers pass rush went nuts, and that 6 more sacks for them. No chance. They dominated up front, the Browns. So the Dolphins are not that type of front. The Dolphins can be run on. We saw the Chargers, even with Kimani Vidal, fresh off the bench, go nuts against the Dolphins, and Rico Dowdle did that a couple weeks ago. So, again, this team is terrible against the run. They're on the road. The Browns play better defense on the road, which can contain the Dolphins. Therefore, the game script should be in the favor for Judkins to get a majority of the workload this week. So, I really feel great about Judkins rebounding. Last week, he still got the volume. He just couldn't produce because, again, the rest of the offense was not there to help. This week, I think he will get help from the rest of the offense because the Dolphins are just that bad. And so Judkins should be right back on track. Don't worry about him. It was just a 1-week hiccup, a fluky thing for the rookie.
Yeah, and then with Rico Dowdle, I mean, just he's on fire.
This is the story of the year, the fantasy story of the year.
Yeah, I mean, 230 plus scrimmage yards in each of the last 2 games, 31 fantasy points in week 5, 32 in week 6. And the thing is, yeah, Chuba Hubbard could be back, but I don't know how this team is like, oh, we're going to put Hubbard back as the lead guy. Like, they've won their last 2 games on the back of Rico Dowdle. He is balling out. He's averaging 6.2 yards per touch on the season compared to Hubbard's 4.7. And the 6.2 yards per touch is second among running backs with the 50-plus touches behind only Bijan Robinson. Like, Rico Dowdle has been electric this year. Another nice matchup against the Jets. I mean, it's not as nice as his last 2 matchups, but still, I don't know how the coaches go away from Dowdle, so we're keeping him high this week.
Yeah, we'll see about Hubbard. They could be like, let's be a little bit careful with Hubbard or whatnot. They could just play that game a little bit and like, oh, we don't need to rush him. Rico Dowdle's playing. Or if they put in Hubbard, they could ease him into action. Or the fact that Hubbard continues to get this or very limited volume in relation to Dowdle, right? And Dowdle just continues to carry the workload. I mean, he's sparking the entire offense. And when you're winning and he's kind of the catalyst behind it all and motivated to end the Jets stink, like I think all things lined up here for Dowdle. So, look, if you're like, could he do it a third time? I don't think it's out of the question. That's how bad the Jets are. But I think he could he get you 100 plus and a touchdown? Absolutely. That's all. Right now you're looking for him. You've already played with house money with Dowdle if you played in the last 2 weeks. So if you get solid, usual stellar RB1 production, you'll be happy with that this week.
Now, your running back 8 is Saquon Barkley. He comes in at my running back 10. And he gets the Vikings this week. They're middle of the pack versus fantasy running backs. But how confident do you feel in this ranking for Barkley? Because he's a running back 15 on average. His efficiency has been real, shot compared to last year, averaging just 3.4 yards on the ground. So, is Barkley, if he had any other name, would he still be sitting up here in your top 8?
I think the hard thing is that some of the other guys have some tough matchups, including Devon H.N. at Cleveland, so that's a tough one. I mean, Breece Hall, I don't know what you're going to get from him week. I mean, Saquon, at least in theory, should get the touches to do something at some point. I mean, it's been really disappointing so far. I mean, the Giants were a great matchup, and they didn't even take advantage of that. And you thought, okay, revenge game, we'd be motivated. But then go figure, the game script went out the window where you couldn't get the carries when you needed in the second half. So we'll see what happens here. I mean, the Vikings are kind of that scrappy team where they're going to swarm when they need to. And they're not always the prettiest defense, but they can get the job done. So I think you keep tempering your expectations, but he's Barkley. At some point, you're going to see the breakthrough, even in a tough matchup.
I did keep Devon Achane and Javonte Williams ahead of Barkley. But, yeah, with Barkley, you're going to just keep plugging him in. It just is difficult. Now, to finish up your top 10, you have Kyren Williams at 9, Javonte Williams at 10. I have Kyren Williams at 11. And like I said, Javonte Williams at 9. But at 12 comes in Bill Croskey-Merritt. You have him at 14. And, I mean, he disappointed greatly in week 6 after a huge week 5 breakout performance. But the thing is, he still had the workload, right? He still had 17 carries. He just wasn't as efficient, and he didn't get into the end zone. And he did play on, by far, his most snaps of his career at 66%. In week 5, when he broke out, he was at 47%, and he was stuck in the 30s the first 4 weeks. So the workload's there. Now, he did lose another fumble. He's lost a fumble in each of the last 2 weeks. Does that put him on the bench a little bit more? We'll see. But this matchup against the Cowboys, it's just too delicious to not look at and put him ranked top 15 this week.
Yeah, if you go Cliff Kingsbury's history going back to Arizona, like if there's fumbling issues or something like that, he tends to do the old school coach doghouse. And it was there for a little bit. Then they put him back in. Look, he's served enough time on the bench. Let's get him back to lead our running game. They did give us a little bit more of Jeremy McNichols in that game. So I just think they'll go right back to Bill. The matchup is really good against the Cowboys, and he'll get back on track. He'll score at least once in this game. They tend to find the end zone with whoever they've got back there. Antonio Gibson said big games for the Commanders on the road in Dallas. We've seen Alfred Morris do it as well. So whoever it seems to be the runner in DC going into Dallas, they always have some kind of success, and the latest guy now is JCM.
Now at 13, I have Ashton Jeanty. You have him right around there at running back 15. He's been a disappointment in terms of where you had to draft him, but he's still been a top 12 running back this year. So, yeah, you're not getting what you wanted, but he's still doing enough to not question plugging him in or not. And then at 14, I have JK Dobbins. You have him a couple spots lower than that. Or no, you actually have him one spot higher at 13. Really, really great matchup against the Giants. He had a disappointing week 6 performance with just 4 points. But the Jets' run defense was on point for whatever reason in London last week. I just don't think that's going to be the case against the Giants. They're allowing 5.5 yards per carry this year, the third most. And they should be able to score some points also more against the Giants this week. So I expect him to find the end zone again like he was during the first 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah, they've been pretty steadfast about staying at the veteran, only sprinkling in RJ Harvey here and there. I mean, Dobbins is what you see is what you get. He's going to run hard, get the yards that are there, and has a good chance to score touchdowns. Broncos also figure to be in control of this game at some point where he'll touch the ball in the second half. They won't be in like a low-scoring slugfest that they were against the Jets. So, yeah, I think just trust Dobbins all the way in this one and feel good that he'll do a lot better than Barkley did. I think, again, things just were out of hand for the Eagles a little bit in that game. And I'll look at Dobbins at the end, but he's going to turn out to be one of the better values that we have in fantasy this season.
Yeah, he really, really will. We have a lot more of our running back rankings to get to. We'll take a quick break and then continue.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is well here. It's into week 6, and the FanDuel app has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets. If you win, that's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if hits, you would unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding in the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better for you. So what are you waiting for? It's already week 6. Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started and take advantage of that bonus offer. All right, Michelle, it is time to continue the show here, looking at running back rankings as we transition from running back 1 to running back 2. Now let's break down Breece Hall. The Panthers kind of slowed down Javonte Williams. It was a very disappointing game for him last week. Derek Brown continues to play pretty well for them up front. Now, where do we go here? I mean, RB12, RB16 are rankings for Breece Hall.
Yeah, I know. It's like he should get so much volume in this game with the Jets, struggling on offense. He should get a lot of carries, and hopefully the thing that was missing from week 6 were the targets. I mean, they dropped to 0, and with Justin Fields, we were expecting him to get fewer targets, but that wasn't really the case. He was getting, the 3 games prior was 6, 6, 5. But it's going down to 0 targets last week. But he did play in 75% of the snaps. So with Braylon Allen out, he is on the field a ton. So I'm going to keep him at, I have him at 16. I don't expect a huge game from him, but I do expect good volume. You're a bit higher at 12.
Yeah, I mean, let's see what we get with Hall. I think the receptions are going to be key to his production this week, especially with no Garrett Wilson. It's going to be a lot of Taylor and Hall, hopefully. And that's what Michelle wants, too, after looking at Justin Fields and still having faith in him as a top 10 quarterback on yesterday's show. So I do think that Hall, again, he's going to have to compile. There's some matchups that I'm not in love with a little bit later. And one of them, I would say, is Travis Etienne. I mean, the Rams are pretty tough against the run. My concern, and Michelle has a bigger concern, I have him all the way down at RB16. You have him at RB21. Is the Rams can shut down the run. Etienne, if he can't run and get going, he's not going to catch passes to make up numbers. If he doesn't score, it could be a lot of a clunker. So, again, you have to play him based on the volume that he's the clear lead back and has been very productive for the Jaguars. But you're a little big play and touchdown dependent with Etienne more than you would like.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, like you said, running back 21. I am nervous about him this week. It doesn't mean you can't play him. I just don't expect a very good game from him. Rams have allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game to running backs this year, and his production has just dropped off. And even really his volume. He only has 12 carries in each of the last 2 games. So it's not like he's seeing a ton of volume on the ground. And unless he scores a touchdown, it's not going to be great. In the last 2 weeks, he hasn't, and he's only scored 7.3 and 7.5 fantasy points in those games. Now, what about Cam Skattebo? I have him ranked at 15. He is so fun to watch, and he was, put on a show last week with 3 rushing touchdowns at 30 fantasy points. You have him at running back 18. It is a tough matchup on the road against the Broncos. They've only allowed 1 rushing touchdown to running backs this year. But Cam Skattebo is playing all the snaps, even with Tyrone Tracy back. It's hard to sit him.
Yeah, you definitely can't sit him anymore. I mean, he's going to get the goal line work. I mean, the Giants are not going to be totally shut down in this game against the Broncos. And one thing you can do is maybe run on the Broncos, and they have to stick on it because Jackson Dart can open things up with his own legs as well in this one. So, again, the Giants also, I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson, that's not going to happen again, right? Come on. Patrick Surtain in the secondary is just too good. They're going to have to trust the running back quite a bit in a very busy role in this game, playing for Dart in terms of supporting him with his own running game. He's not going to get 3 touchdowns again, but 1 and like 60 yards combined, you'll take it from him in this tough of a matchup where the Broncos absolutely destroyed the Jets last week. You'll take anything like that. That's pretty decent. I think you'll get it. Skattebo is probably the Giant with the best chance to score a touchdown.
Now at number 17 for you comes a David Montgomery. I'm a little bit lower at 22. He's just been very, very inconsistent, right? And his workload has been inconsistent. However, Dan Campbell has come out to say that he wants his backfield to be more 50-50 split. He said David Montgomery needs to see more touches and that he wants to even out this backfield a little bit. We'll see if that actually happens. The Buccaneers have a really good run defense, right? So that's why I lean on more like Jahmyr Gibbs getting the receptions. Will Montgomery be able to get into the end zone if he gets that opportunity near the goal line? So I'm going to keep him down at 22, even though, Dan Campbell's talking him up. But you like him a lot this week at 17.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of difference, but I do like him as a solid RB2. I think in general, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery also are more confident plays at home. I mean, their 2 clunkers came in Green Bay and Kansas City against 2 pretty tough defenses. But otherwise, they've been rather productive. Just we saw 2 weeks ago in Cincinnati, they both scored. Like that continued that little trend where there are a lot of games where both of them score. And I think this is a good chance to do that. If we think it's going to be high scoring, I mean, we look at St. Brown and Laporta and Williams. These are the other 2 guys that can score. On the other side, I mean, Rachaad White and Buccaneers and some other random receivers are probably going to score in that one. So when you look at it, I think there's going to be a lot of chances near the goal line and opportunities, and that's really going to boost this matchup for Montgomery and Gibbs.
To close out my top 20, I have Rachaad White at 17, Kimani Vidal at 18, Jaylen Warren at 19, and DeAndre Swift at 20. So those are all guys I actually have ahead of Travis Etienne this week and ahead of David Montgomery. But I might end up moving Montgomery up a little bit. I do trust him more than Etienne, so I'll probably at least switch those 2 guys out. And to close out your top 20, you had Rachaad White at 18, Cam Skattebo at 19, DeAndre Swift at 20. And then Jaylen Warren, who I had at 19, you have at 22. So pretty similar there. We will get into some of the deeper running back plays this week. Some guys that you considered in your RB2 spot or maybe flex. We'll get to that right after a quick break. The NFL season is here, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, the login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast and easy and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. You can pull up Game Time in just a couple of taps. You'll see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. Plus, you can see the exact view from your seat before you buy. The app is made to use easily. It's super, super simple and fast. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. I want to talk about Kimani Vidal right now because last week he got all the touches basically in this backfield, in the Chargers backfield with a Marion Hampton on IR, had 138 yards, 21 touches. He gets a receiving touchdown, but that was against the Miami Dolphins. Do you think he can keep it up against the Colts this week? I don't expect him to put up that type of performance, but I still do have him ranked pretty high. I'm at 18, but you're much lower at running back 27 this week.
Yeah, I think you just have to look. The Colts are pretty good against the run. They do struggle in the back end against passing games, so they're going to have to open it up. And we know how bad the Dolphins were against the run. You could run basically anybody against them, and you would have had success. So Vidal, I think, is going to be a little bit of a drop off this week. Look, there's a reason why these guys, Vidal and Hassan Haskins, weren't the lead options, and they had Harris and Hampton. They're limited, and this is the type of game that they could be limited in tougher matchups when the Chargers are working up front. So I just say, hey, this is going to be more of an opening of the passing type game for the Chargers to move the ball. Now, Vidal proved he was pretty good in the receiving game. He did have a touchdown in that capacity. So let's watch that. But I could see also the Chargers just saying, hey, this matchup just calls for Justin Herbert to be let loose, throw it downfield. It's a situation where we don't have to worry about weather. We're at home. The Colts are going back and forth. The Colts could also pull on the Chargers and make them play from behind again. So all these factors come into play where Vidal would cool the Jets a little bit based on last week's performance and don't chase it.
Now, one guy that we think is a solid RB2, low end RB2 play this week is Jordan Mason against the Eagles. I have him ranked at 23. You have him at 21. I mean, it's been one big game from him in week 3, a couple okay games after that, but the Eagles have not been the defense they were last year at all. They have allowed the 8th most points per game to running backs. We expect there to be some scoring in this matchup. If it is JJ McCarthy back there, you would expect them to lean on the run game. So I think Jordan Mason's solid enough to at least have a chance to score a touchdown in this matchup.
When you look at Jordan Mason, I think he's well rested now. They had the bye week, so I think they need to load it up. And the Eagles have not been good. I mean, we just saw the Skattebo game against the Eagles. They just have struggled a little bit against the run in general, more than we would like. And that's also hurt Vic Fangio wanting to get into his pass defense and give him the pressure and give the guys in position to make plays on the back end, including Jan Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. So if you can run on the Eagles, that's the best way to have success this week. So I do think that's a way that they're going to attack them, especially if Carson Wentz is still back there, even if J.J. McCarthy's back there. I think you have to run on the Eagles, take advantage of their defensive weakness at the moment.
Now, 2 guys that were drafted pretty high in fantasy drafts this year, Chase Brown and Kenneth Walker. It's hard to trust either of them in your fantasy matchups, and I have them ranked at running back 24 for Chase Brown, running back 25 for Kenneth Walker. I don't even necessarily love that ranking, but there's not a lot of great options once you get to this range. But Kenneth Walker is just getting so much work taken away from Charbonnet. And then Chase Brown has just been so incredibly inefficient. And then also is all of a sudden playing less time too, to Samaje Perine being out on the field. So who do you trust more between those 2 backs if you had to play one?
Yeah, I think volume based is Chase Brown. I do not like any of this at all. I mean, I don't know. The Bengals just cannot seem creative ways to get Chase Brown involved. I thought, okay, so they're struggling. They'll check down and try to get him in open field and do that, right? But I think Joe Flacco eventually is going to make things better for Chase Brown. I think he looked a little bit better last week. This running game is right there at the bottom of the league, so that's a concern with their offensive line, especially not functioning well anywhere inside or outside. So, again, this Chase Brown, Kenneth Walker, and Chase Brown, I think, takes the cake for the biggest bust so far at running back. No offense to Saquon Barkley, maybe a little bit Barkley based on where you drafted him, but you look at Kenneth Walker, he hasn't been a good value either with the usage of Charbonnet. So, again, I barely like Brown over Walker, but if you got better options, please play them this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, do you think either of these 2 guys are better options, and which one would you go for in the Cardinals backfield? Michael Carter or Bam Knight, who has to face the Packers defense? They've allowed the 4th fewest points per game to running backs. It was Michael Carter who owned the backfield in week 5, but then we saw Bam Knight, take over and play more often than Carter in week 6. But it is Carter who is the receiving back, though, for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I just hate this matchup against Green Bay. Green Bay had Chase Brown last week. I mean, that was also a factor that Chase didn't do all that much. And I don't know, like if you had Jacoby Brissett back there without Marvin Harrison Jr. stretching the field, it could be just a lot of passes to Trey McBride this week to move the ball and hope for the best of the Cardinals. So I would like to avoid the Cardinals as much as possible in that Green Bay matchup.
Now, what about the Texans backfield? Woody Marks or Nick Chubb against the Seahawks? Seahawks are middle of the pack against running backs. Woody Marks had his coming out game in week 4, but then shot right back down in week 5 before the bye at just 2.4 fantasy points. Nick Chubb finally had a nice game in week 5, but I mean, still no receptions for him in that game. 11 carries. He just happened to get the rushing touchdown for 61 yards and a rushing touchdown. If I had to go with one, I'm still leaning Woody Marks just because the ceiling for Chubb is just so low.
Yeah, I think you could go Woody Marks also because he might get more work in the passing game. That's where the Seahawks have struggled straight up running game. They've been better against power runners in the Nick Chubb vein. So, again, I'm not banging the table to go after either. This is just seems like a game where, other than Jackson Smith-Njigba, Nico Collins going at it, I don't know if I want too much more invested either in season long or DFS to get this game. So that's something that I'm just working on. I think there's going to be a lot of passing, some good, some bad, and some sloppy, where I think also both defenses will make plays off some turnovers and sacks.
And Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson have a good matchup against the Titans this week. I just don't love this backfield. Travion Henderson just is not seeing his usage increase whatsoever, even with Antonio Gibson out. So if you're going to play one, I guess it's Ramondre Stevenson. You do have him ranked at 22. I'm ranked at 30. It's more of just a desperation play for me. And Henderson, I just don't think you can trust him in your lineup. And a couple other guys, Tony Pollard, we're both pretty similar on. I have him at 27. You have him at 28. And then Isaiah Pacheco, he got a lot more work this last week. So I think he's the guy to play over Kareem Hunt. But again, that's more of a desperation play as well.
Yeah, I do like either Chiefs running back if you want to take a shot at them in the flexing because the Raiders stink overall. And again, I could think the Chiefs could just roll the Raiders big time. They're more than 10-point favorites in this one, so they should say they're playing from ahead. Pacheco and Hunt have actually had some big games against the Raiders in the past. So if you're looking for something there, this might be a game where they use the passing game to get up early and just run nuts in the second half. So I think you can take the matchups are really good for them. And I think Tony Pollard has a terrible matchup, but I think Stevenson is good enough to play based on how bad the Titans have been against the run.
Yeah.
So, again, I think the Patriots and Chiefs, if you're looking for the biggest point pool to go after this week for different guys to score, I think New England and Kansas City are the teams.
All right. Well, that will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen of the day. For your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler, the Man Roland, gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be back tomorrow to hit on our wide receiver fantasy rankings for week 7. Don't miss it. Bye, y'all.